On January 5th, 2021, Raphael Warnock became the first black Georgian elected to the United States Senate, alongside Jon Ossoff, who became the state's first Jewish senator, reflecting a political transformation fueled by the might of black voters and other voters of color. The very next day, a MAGA insurrectionist mob stormed the halls of Congress, driven by lies about election fraud. In a new essay, Senator Warnock reflected on these two crucial days in American history. Warnock wrote of his late father, quote, "On January 5th, 2021, his youngest son was elected Georgia's first black United States senator, and only the 11th in the nation's history. What would he think about the attack on the Capitol the very next day? Both say something profound about the America he knew and the one he always knew we could become." Joining me now is Senator Raphael Warnock, author of the new book, A Way Out of No Way, a memoir of truth, transformation, and the new American story, which I'm very excited to read. Senator and Reverend Dr. Warnock, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you. So tell me, what do these two parallel events, what do they say about our country?
Thank you so much, Joy. It's great to be here with you. Listen, every family has a complicated story, all of our families. And there are parts of our family story that we may not be eager to confront, but that's the only way healing comes. And as you point out, I was elected on January 5th alongside Jon Ossoff, the state's first black senator and first Jewish senator, elected in one fell swoop. I like to think that somewhere Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel are smiling because they marched alongside one another. And we came to the Senate on the wave of a multiracial coalition, I think the future of the country. Then on January 6th, we saw this violent attack on the Capitol, driven by the big lie, and the not so subtle premise that certain voices and votes don't count. You don't get to determine the future of the country. And so we're at this inflection point, and we've got to decide, are we the America of January 5th or the America of January 6th? I choose January 5th. I choose what Dr. King called beloved community. And when I think about my dad, who I mentioned, I talk about in that essay, born in 1917, a World War II veteran who was once asked to give up his seat to a white teenager while riding the bus in his uniform, but saw the arc of history in our country, I remain hopeful, and we must all remain vigilant.
Well, I mean, the reality is that January 5th in some ways caused January 6th, right? I mean, that reality that a state like Georgia in the South, a state that historically has been, a repository of racism, et cetera, and oppression, produces this black and this Jewish senator because of the change in the vote. Like, that's what they were mad about, right? It's that new electorate that is capable of electing you and Jon Ossoff that people were so angry about. So, I mean, what do you expect and hope to hear when two Republican members, who are still elected officials in your state, Brad Raffensperger, who we know Donald Trump pressured to try to give him the election, and his deputy Gabriel Sterling, they're going to testify to this same January 6th committee. Do you think anything about what happened changed them and their perspective about politics?
Well, I think Georgia, in a real sense, saved the country, gave the country a chance to fight and push towards its ideals. And as a kid who was born and raised in that state, I'm very proud of what the people of Georgia did. We, again, have to remain vigilant. As I talk about my story in this memoir, A Way Out of No Way, which, by the way, is a phrase that comes out of the black church. It is a phrase, as you know, God makes a way out of no way. It's born of struggle, and it's born of challenge and oppression, and yet keeping the faith, even in the midst of challenge. We have to keep the faith, and we have to keep up the fight. And so I remain hopeful, and I'm not about to give up on our democracy. And it's the most precious thing we can defend at a moment like this. You speak about your faith. You do pastor the church of the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I think we have a picture that shows that Ebenezer Baptist Church. You still preach at that church. You're still an active pastor. Do you recall what the first sermon is that you preached after the January 6th insurrection, and what you said to that beautiful church? Yeah, I forgive me. I preach every Sunday, but it all kind of runs together after a while. But I think I talked about this tension, this creative tension that we live in, and both speak to an important part of who we are. We can't pretend like January 6th isn't a part of us. It is. But the good news is so is January 5th. And when I think about my own improbable journey, when I think not only about my dad, but my mom, who grew up in Waycross, Georgia, picking somebody else's cotton and tobacco, those 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton and tobacco, picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator. And yes, there are challenges. There are moments when the democracy expands. There are moments when it contracts. But even contractions can give birth to new possibilities and a new world, and we have to fight for it.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, even though I hate to have you have to even address it, but you are facing, what do you make of the fact that the voters on the other side of the aisle chose someone like Herschel Walker, who's a football legend? I used to, revere him as a football player, but given all of his challenges, his sort of pound cake speech version of what black men should be doing in terms of the home and the reality of his own situation vis-a-vis babies and mamas, what do you make of that hypocrisy and the fact that he is who Republicans think is fit to serve in the United States Senate and to remove you from the Senate?
I think that in the midst of this campaign, the people of Georgia have a real choice before them about who they think is ready to represent them in the United States Senate. I'm proud of my lifelong commitment to service and how I've translated that into the Senate and the work that we're doing to fight for ordinary, hardworking families.
That was very diplomatic. That's because you're a pastor, so that you're a man of God. That was very diplomatic. Senator Raphael Warnock, thank you very much. Congratulations on the book.